What is NIO Stock going to do after earnings this week? NIO has earnings November 20th. That's Wednesday before the market opens. And on screen right now, I've got the fail to deliver chart. This is the most recent data, including the three big spikes that caught my attention in this year of 2024. But there's something else I want to point out that we'll get to here in just a minute. First off, let's go over to the NIO site, because as you'll see here, there are two things I want to point out. First is the upcoming earnings was a break of cadence in the dates, because the recent calls the last year or so, December 5th, March 5th, June 6th, September 5th, there's that consistency, and it's now been broken November 20th. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe there's good news that we're going to get. I don't know. But this date, September 5th, is the one that I want to talk about with the FTDs and also the trade volume for NIO. If you'll note at the bottom of the screen, I've had it on there for a while now, that the ticker has the three short-term indicators for stock price. Now, the fail to delivers are represented by the white lines, and these are the three big spikes, and they are in fact the biggest spikes that we've seen from NIO Stock since dating all the way back to 2020, when NIO Stock made its really big move. Now, I'm not calling for that. I'm also not ruling it out. Here's what gets interesting is the last earnings was September 5th. And if we go back to September 4th, then what you'll see is a 49 million trade volume day. That's the first indicator I've got listed. But then if we go to the 5th, over 109 million shares traded in an obvious move up with the stock. How about the following trade day? Over 104 million shares. And then if we continue on, we'll see over 100 million again. And then it starts dropping back down, sub 60 million, 50 million, 70 million, 64 million, and we stay in this range. Now, what about when it starts moving up again? We're just going to fast forward to the part that matters, I think, and that's why I've highlighted the stock a trade volume as being an indicator. The day before this move, there were 66 million shares traded. The next day, over 115 million shares traded. Following day, 72 million. The next day, 139 million. Following day, and this is by trade days, by the way, over 180 million, over 214 million, over 146 million, over 135 million, into the recent high that we've seen from the stock price. It's almost as if those short-term indicators are maybe even right. I don't know. Call me crazy. And there are a lot of disclaimers and asterisks and this sort of thing that come along with this FTD data. So I'll scroll down. We'll talk a little about this. Actually, I'll just read you some of it so you can kind of get a sense of what I'm seeing and thinking. Fails to deliver, this is next to 8. Fails to deliver on a given day are a cumulative number of all fails outstanding until that day, plus new fails that occur that day, less fails that settle that day. And then they go on to talk about closing price on the trade date, and then the settlement standards, and the 11 next to that one, they're talking about reg show. A broker dealer has up to 35 calendar days following the trade date to close out the failure to deliver position by purchasing securities of like kind and quantity. And look, we could just keep going further into the weeds on this. I don't want to do that. I want to stay focused on big picture overview and concept. And that is, if we never really get to see this data real time, if the FTDs are cumulative, meaning they can be built up over the course of time, and all we know is they get reported on a certain day and they may not even be from that day. All I want to know is, okay, do we have any recent spikes? These are the recent spikes, and that's why I wanted to share this and talk about this in this video, and then also point out how the trade volume upticked significantly for NIO Stock after that last earnings. And those next days, when we saw the bigger moves with the stock price, happened even after we had recent spikes on the fails to deliver. But until we got that bigger volume showing up, what we saw was after the bigger spikes, price basically went to the lowest it's been in a year plus. Same deal over here. After the 5 million, boom. And it's the same area both times. So my question is, are we going to see elevated trade volume starting on November 20th of this week? That's what I'm wondering and thinking about. Also, this is another FTD release history, and they talk about FTD, or failed to deliver, Failed to deliver, refers to a situation in financial markets where a party, typically a brokerage or market maker, fails to fulfill its obligation to deliver securities as part of a transaction. This failure can occur when a seller does not deliver the securities to the buyer within the agreed upon time frame, typically within the settlement period. Now, they say typically within the settlement period, but that period can be 35 calendar days. So look, who knows what it really is? All I need to know or want to know and have in mind is big picture overview. I've got it at the bottom of the screen, and it's what will stay in mind when I'm watching things in the shorter term. And that is, what is the trade volume for NIO stock? What are the FTDs that failed to deliver numbers looking like, and especially in the recent history? And then what is the sentiment? And when does the sentiment become more positive? If it is negative, as I think it is right now, I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I wanted to share and talk a little bit more about some of these things that I thought were very fascinating. And then some of the maybe less interesting, but some of the asterisks, the disclaimers, that sort of thing that come along with these failed to deliver data. And even, the fact that it's so lagged, we don't even know how lagged it is or how long it's been building up. So anyway, drop it in the comments. I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think NIO stock is going to do, and not just what it's going to do. Do you think we're going to have elevated trade volume levels like we did after the last earnings? If we do, I'm thinking it's going up, because that's what happened the last time. But that's just my thought. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun week.